This happened just a few days ago. I'm Clara, a freelance graphic designer, and I was staying at my sister's apartment while she was on a business trip. I thought it would be a nice change, a way to spark some inspiration since my work had been slow lately. The place felt cozy, and I even took the task of caring for her cat. The first night I got settled in, I could hear the faint sounds of traffic outside. I put my bags down and wandered into the bedroom. That's when I noticed it. An old doll lay on my sister's bed. Its smile felt off, almost unsettling. It was worn and dusty, and I was sure I hadn't seen it before. I planned to ask my sister about it when she called. At that moment, I didn't think much about it. Everything seemed fine for the first day, but then I started to notice other odd things. I found a stack of letters hidden between the cushions of the couch. They were all written in the same handwriting. It had a strange slant. I couldn't make out what they said, but something about those letters filled me with dread. The cat, usually playful, started acting differently. It kept its distance from the doll and would hiss at the walls. I felt a chill at the back of my neck every time it did that. As days went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I noticed strange markings on the furniture. They looked like scratches or symbols. I had no idea what they meant. The sounds of the busy city felt distant as unease crept into my mind. The cat would stare at the bedroom door, tail twitching, but barely making a sound. I tried to ignore it, but it was hard. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Every creak in the apartment felt louder. My heart raced. I decided to check on the doll. It looked even more ominous in the dim light. I picked it up. The fabric was ragged and faded. I felt a strange sensation in my arms. Then the cat lunged forward, hissing and spitting. I froze. I didn't know why I was so scared. Then I heard something. Soft whispers coming from the letters. I looked at them, but they lay still. It felt like the words were swirling in the air around me, too heavy to ignore. I glanced at the door. It was slightly ajar. My heart pounded. Maybe it was just my imagination. And then I saw it. The doll moving. Just a little. Its smile looked wider. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to run, but I found myself frozen. What did I bring into this apartment? I stood there, clutching the doll, the whispers filling the room. The cat's hissing grew louder. I felt trapped, caught in that moment with my sister miles away. I didn't know what to think. I only knew I needed to leave, but I couldn't. Not yet. The moment I blinked, everything changed. The doll wasn't just unsettling now. It felt alive. I dropped it onto the bed, heart racing. I backed away slowly as the cat's hissing became more frantic. My instincts screamed at me to get out, but I stayed glued to the spot, unable to tear my eyes away.
Then, without warning, the apartment shook. It wasn't physical, but rather a sense of dread that washed over me, as if I had stepped into a different reality. The air felt dense, heavy, charged with an energy that made my skin prickle. I turned and rushed out of the bedroom, desperate for space and air. I grabbed my phone, hoping to call my sister, but the screen was frozen. Panic rose in my chest. Instead, I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm myself. I returned to the living room, wanting to put distance between myself and the doll. The fluffy rug felt welcoming under my bare feet, a reminder of normalcy. But just then, I heard something else, a faint scratching sound coming from the walls. I stepped closer, heart thumping in my ears. It was almost rhythmic, like fingers clawing at the wood. I hesitated, glancing back at the cat, who now watched me closely. Its eyes were wide and alert, and I felt like my every move was being scrutinized. I finally decided to investigate. I approached the wall from where the sound was coming. My fingers traced the surface, and the scratching stopped abruptly. I pressed my ear to the wood, feeling a strange vibration against my skin. My mind raced back to the letters. What secrets hid within those peculiar notes? What had my sister gotten herself into? And then it hit me. What if the letters had something to do with the doll? What if they were warnings? I rushed to the couch, heart pounding harder with each step. The letters were gone, vanished. I felt an urgency swell inside me. I needed answers. With the cat still watching, I turned toward the bedroom. A knot in my stomach tightened as I crossed the threshold. I glanced at the doll, still on the bed, its eyes glimmering in the dim light. I picked it up again. This time, I noticed something unusual about its seams. There was a small opening at the back of its head. My fingers trembled as I pulled it open. Inside, I found a tiny folded piece of paper. It felt ancient and fragile. I unfolded it carefully, my breath catching in my throat as I read the first line. "She calls to you, Clara." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Who was she? Why did this feel like a message meant for me? Suddenly, the lights flickered, and everything went dark. An overwhelming sense of something sinister flooded the room. I dropped the doll, horrified. I stumbled backward, eyes wide, only to hear a voice, not just
just whispers this time, but an echoing call, deep and haunting. Then I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I turned slowly, my instincts shouting at me to escape. The darkness felt thick, like a presence was wrapping around me, smothering any spark of courage. The cat was no longer hissing. It was frozen in place, eyes wide, locked onto something behind me. Before I could shift my gaze, a chill raced down my spine, and the air grew colder. "Hello," I managed to whisper, but my voice sounded foreign even to me.
Each second stretched like an eternity as I fought the urge to flee. My heart raced and my breath quickened. I squinted into the blackness, searching for any sign of life, anything that could explain the sensation gripping me. A shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. I turned sharply, but there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of my bedroom. I glanced back at the doll, as if it could offer me some kind of explanation, but its stitched face revealed nothing. Then came the scratching again, this time louder and more frantic, like nails scraping against a window pane. I jumped. The noise seemed to resonate from the walls themselves, echoing through the dark with a terrifying intensity. Panic bubbled in my stomach, and I took a step back, my foot brushing against the doll. It felt wrong, like my own pulse was turning against me. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the room in a harsh, artificial glow. I blinked, adjusting to the change, but then I saw it. A figure stood in the far corner, just out of reach of the light. It was small and hunched, almost doll-like, its face shrouded in shadow. My breath hitched, fear clawing at my throat. "Who are you?" I rasped, my feet rooted to the floor. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it lurched forward, and my instincts kicked in. I bolted for the door, adrenaline propelling me. I could hear the figure's movement behind me, but I didn't turn back. I flung open the door and stumbled into the hallway, gasping for breath. What is happening? I thought frantically. I needed to get outside, away from whatever that was. I sprinted down the hall, the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. The apartment hallway felt impossibly long, each step a fight against the suffocating darkness that seemed to follow me. Just as I neared the stairs, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I yanked it out, heart in my throat. The screen blinked to life, and I saw a message from my sister. "Clara, don't engage with it. It's awakened." The blood drained from my face. What had I awakened? Before I could process more, the lights flickered again, and an icy breeze swept through the hall, carrying a whisper. "Clara." My heart raced. I glanced back toward my apartment, visions of the shadow lurking there flooding my mind. I had to act. I didn't know what was real anymore, but I couldn't ignore the urgency in my sister's message. If I didn't confront this thing now, I'd be trapped in that endless nightmare. I inhaled deeply, turning back toward the darkness, determination coursing through me. That's when I saw it again, the doll, just sitting there, perfectly still on the bed. But this time, it was no longer alone. I stood frozen in the hallway, heart thumping wildly in my chest. The sight of the doll was unsettling, but it wasn't just the doll that sent a wave of dread through me.
Surrounding it were other toys, once innocent companions of my childhood. A stuffed rabbit with one eye, a weathered teddy bear, and a few unrecognizable figures that seemed to belong in a nightmare. They were arranged in a circle, faces turned towards the doll, as if they were waiting for something. What were they doing there? I blinked hard, trying to shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Why had they moved? I didn't recall placing them there. Breathing heavily, an overwhelming urge to run surged through me. I stepped back, but the floor creaked under my weight, echoing through the stillness. "Clara." The whisper came again, softer, but unmistakably nearby. It was more than just a voice. It was a lure, beckoning me closer. Against every instinct, I felt the pull of curiosity mixed with dread. I edged forward, every step heavy with fear. The toys remained still, but a thick silence filled the air, pressing against my ears. I reached the doorway, peering in. The doll was now front and center, its button eyes seeming to glimmer with a life of their own. It felt as if it were watching me, and that made my skin crawl. Then I saw it. Something moved among the toys, a flicker of movement, a flash of fabric. The haunted emptiness of the room seeped into me. I stepped back again, crushed by the weight of uncertainty. I didn't know what I was looking at, and I wasn't sure if I could face it. As I turned around, my phone buzzed again, startling me. This time the message read, "Clara,
Don't go in. I barely had time to process it before the lights in the hallway flickered, plunging me into darkness for a moment. A deep, echoing laugh seemed to reverberate, crawling up my back. Panic and confusion smashed together in my mind. I backed away, suddenly aware that I was completely alone. The echo of laughter chased me, growing louder as dread took hold. Adrenaline surged as I felt the need to run overwhelm my senses. Then I heard it. Tiny footsteps padding softly behind me, closing the distance quickly. I whipped around, and there it was again, that same shadowy figure lurching toward me from the doorway of my sister's room. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt my feet start to turn, ready to bolt. But something stopped me. My eyes were drawn back, drawn to the circle of toys on the bed. This time the doll was smiling, its stitched mouth gaping wide as if calling me home. In that moment I realized whatever was happening, whatever had awakened, was inviting me into their world, and I was terrified to know what that meant. I turned to flee, but suddenly the door slammed shut, and the whisper crept closer, chilling me to my core. I pressed my back against the wall, heart racing, breath quickening. Now I had nowhere to run.
I fought the urge to scream, my voice caught in the thick dread swirling around me. With nowhere to run, I had to think. The door was firmly shut, and I could hear that whisper again, this time more insistent. "Clara, come play." It was strange to hear my name from something so distorted. It twisted the air, making my skin crawl. I took a cautious step back. The shadow seemed to stretch toward me as I moved, almost alive. I turned my head slowly, stealing glances at the circle of toys. Their unblinking eyes held a kind of sickening anticipation. Then I heard a noise, sharp and unmistakable, a rattle coming from the bed. My heart raced faster, almost drowning out the whispering call. I couldn't take my eyes off the doll. What was it doing? It seemed to glow faintly, and in that moment it felt like time stopped. A cold rush of air wrapped around me, and I shivered, realizing I wasn't alone in my fear. Before I could decide my next move, the shadow moved again, darting out of the room. I had no choice but to follow, even if my instinct screamed against it. Every instinct told me to bolt the other way, but something compelled me onward. As I crossed the threshold into the room, I felt a rush of energy hit me, like stepping into a storm. I looked around frantically, searching for the shadow. It was gone. I glanced back at the circle of toys, now still as if nothing had happened, just a haunting collection of fabric and stuffing. Then the doll's smile changed. The stitches seemed to twist into a horrifying grin, wide and mocking. I took a step back, teetering on the edge of panic. But as the look of the doll sunk in, something fluttered at the corner of my vision. I turned to see a small notebook lying on the floor, partially hidden under the bed. Its cover was dusty, fading. Against my better judgment, I knelt down to pick it up, and felt a surge of warmth radiate from the doll. I could feel its presence behind me, more powerful now. I opened the notebook gingerly. Inside, scrawled in shaky handwriting, were bizarre entries about toys coming to life, of children hearing whispers, and of a friend waiting for them. The last entry left me frozen. "Once you see, you can never leave." Chills shot through me, and suddenly the room became stifling. I slammed the notebook shut, now feeling the atmosphere shift dramatically. The whispers escalated into a chorus, louder now, frantic. They wanted something from me, but I didn't know what. I turned to the door, desperate to escape, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged anew. Then I felt it, a prickling sensation on my neck, like someone was standing right behind me. Heart pounding, I spun around. The doll was gone. The room felt emptier, but I could still hear a faint giggle mixed in the echoes of the chaos surrounding me. I was trapped, surrounded by the remnants of childhood magic, twisted into something dark.
And if that giggle belonged to whoever or whatever was waiting for me, I knew I had to make a choice. But before I could even think, the lights flickered again, and everything went dark. When the lights flickered back on, I blinked against the sudden brightness. The room looked different, almost lifeless. The toys were back in their places, the floor was undisturbed, and the doll sat poised on the edge of the bed, its sinister smile somehow sharper than before. A sense of dread crawled up my spine. I stumbled on shaky legs toward the door, expecting it to swing open, but it held firm, refusing to yield. A knot of panic twisted in my stomach as I pressed against the door, desperately pushing and pulling, but it wouldn't budge. No, no, I whispered to myself, this isn't happening. I turned back to the room, and that's when I noticed something new. On my sister's bed, amid a jumble of dusty stuffed animals, lay a small metal key. It glinted mockingly in the overhead light. I took a cautious step closer, my heart racing. Something inside me urged me to grab it, but fear held me frozen in place. Was it a trick? But I needed to escape. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. The moment I reached for the key, the elements shifted. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of distorted voices calling my name. Clara, join us. I snatched up the key and jolted back, breathing heavily. I clutched it tightly in my hand, half expecting the shadows to lunge at me, but nothing happened. Instead, an unsettling calm briefly settled over the room. I stared at the key, anxiety mixed with curiosity. What did it unlock? My gaze flickered to the closet door, slightly ajar, shadows pooling at its base. Could it be a way out? In that moment, I felt the doll watching me, its gaze unyielding. I caught my breath, knew I had to make my next move count. I rounded on the closet, my heart thundering in my chest. My trembling fingers reached for the doorknob, but the whispers surged again, louder and more insistent, wrapping around me like tendrils of smoke. Clara, come play. Just as my hand closed around the knob, the room dimmed again. I glanced back at the bed. The doll was gone. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I twisted the knob, swinging the door open. The closet was dark, more profound than before. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. The shadows devoured me whole, and before I could even process what lay within, the door slammed shut behind me. The sound was deafening, a finality that pulled a scream from my throat. My eyes adjusted, and I saw something moving in the darkness, something small and quick, darting across the floor. My skin prickled with fear. I wasn't alone. I peeked through the gaps in the clothes hanging around me, and something glowed faintly in the corner of the closet. Whatever it was, I knew it was watching me, and it was hungry for company.
I took a hesitant step deeper into the closet, the air thick with dust and the odor of old fabric. The glow in the corner pulsed softly, lighting up the darkness just enough for me to make out its shape. A small, tattered book rested on the floor, its cover worn and frayed. I had seen it before, tucked away on the bookshelf, watching for the journal as the whispers grew louder, forming a chorus of disembodied voices. Clara, read our story. Ignoring them, I flipped the book open. The pages were filled with hasty sketches and frantic handwriting, a mix of her thoughts and drawings of the things that haunted this house. Suddenly, a drawing caught my eye, a crooked figure with hollow eyes that seemed too real. It looked like the doll from my sister's bed. The closer I examined the page, the more the air around me shifted. I felt a chill as if cold fingers were brushing against my skin. The whispers intensified, urging me to turn the pages. Join us, Clara. I slammed the book shut, shaking my head in defiance. I had to focus. The door behind me felt miles away, and I couldn't risk getting lost in whatever was happening here. I forced myself to stand, glancing around the dim closet, heart pounding louder than the voices. I wasn't ready to see what else my sister had captured in her journal. Before I could move, something rustled near my feet. I looked down and found a tiny, wriggling shadow camping at my side. It glimmered, reflecting the faint light from the book. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was a small, twisted figure, no taller than my hand. Its eyes glowed, a swirling mix of gold and green, fixing on me with an unsettling intensity. Help us find her, it hissed, its voice like sandpaper scraping against skin. The thing shivered on the ground, its tiny limbs reaching out toward me. Find who? I demanded, my voice trembling. My instinct was to back away, but I was pressed against darkness with nowhere to go. Her, it croaked again, pointing toward the journal. And in that moment, I understood. This was about more than just me. Whatever had taken my sister, whatever was haunting this house, was still searching for something. Before I could react, a loud bang erupted from behind the closet door. It rattled against its frame, as if something enormous was trying to get in. I whipped around, terror gripping my heart. The shadows lengthened, converging as if drawn to the noise. Clara, help us. She's close, the creature implored, its eyes spinning even faster now. My heart raced. I had to decide.
Stay and try to uncover the truth of my sister's world, or rush back to the door and whatever lay beyond it. But then another thought crossed my mind. What if I didn't have a choice? The closet felt more like a coffin, tight and closing in.
I had to find a way out, or I might join whatever horrors awaited me. I clenched my fists around the journal, ready to confront the unknown, as the closet door quaked again. The pull of the darkness was eager, and I could sense it wanting me. "Clara," the whispers begged, "you have to choose." Suddenly, the door burst open, spilling light into the closet. I squinted as a figure stepped inside, bathed in brightness. My heart leaped, and I froze, dread flooding my senses. "Help is here," it said, but now I was left with more questions than answers as I faced this new arrival. The light from the doorway was blinding, but I could make out the figure. It was a woman with hair like a waterfall of golden silk. She wore a simple white dress, but the edges shimmered like stars in the night. I thought I should feel relief, but my heart hammered in my chest. "Who are you?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm here to help you," she said, moving gently toward me. "You must trust me. Your sister is in danger." The words struck me like a punch to the stomach. "What do you mean? Where is she?" I took a cautious step forward, still keeping the journal tight against my chest. The tiny creature next to me quivered, its eyes shifting to the woman, then back to me. "She's been taken to a place where darkness hides," the woman replied, her voice soothing yet urgent. "But we can still reach her. You have to open the journal again, Clara. The truth is inside." I hesitated, glancing down at the book in my hands. I licked my lips, uncertainty gnawing at me. But I didn't want to. "Time is short," the woman urged, her eyes narrowing. "If you don't act now, you'll lose her forever." Just then, the creature let out a piercing shriek, and I felt the closet trembling around me. The shadows pressed in closer, dark tendrils reaching out, eager to entrap me. I swallowed hard, the urge to bolt overwhelming me. "Clara, please, the journal," the creature begged again, its voice thin like paper. "We won't survive without it." I didn't know what to do. The weight of choices bore down on me. I could run, but what if that sealed my sister's fate? Memories of laughter and shared secrets flooded my mind, and I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her behind. With trembling hands, I opened the journal once more. The pages crackled like a fire igniting as a brilliant light spilled forth. Images sprang to life, swirling around me. I gasped, taking a step back. In one sketch, I spotted my sister, her expression twisted in terror among dark shapes that clawed at her. "This is where they took her," I said, fear rising in my throat. "Yes, the key lies in understanding what you see," the urged woman urged. "You must follow her story." The shadows seemed to grow angry, swirling in a frenzy. I clenched the pages tighter, focusing as I tried to decipher the frantic drawings and writing. Then I noticed a phrase that was scribbled in red ink. "The doll cannot be forgotten."
My heart raced. The doll? What doll? I glanced toward the door, where the oppressive dark loomed, but before I could react, the light from the journal flared brighter, shaking my vision. And then, silence. Everything went dark. I could feel the weight of the shadows pressing down on me, a slow, creeping chill that seeped into my bones. The last thing I saw was the glimmer of the woman's eyes, filled with determination. "Find her, Clara! She's counting on you!" But when I reached out, only darkness answered. Fear engulfed me, a screaming void that threatened to swallow me whole. I stood there, lost between the house and the other side, feeling the pull of unknown things creeping in closer, desperately searching for the light. I opened my eyes, thinking the darkness might lift, but it was still there, cold and heavy, just like before. Panic began to settle in, a quickened breathing that was hard to control. I could feel the shadows pulling at me, the sharp tug growing more insistent. "Clara, focus!" The little creature's voice sounded distant but urgent. "You need to get to her. You can't stay here." With effort, I remembered the journal. I fumbled around, searching blindly, creating a sense of direction in the void. Finally, my fingers grazed the familiar texture of the pages. I opened it again, hoping the light would guide me. I needed to find my sister. As the light erupted, it banished some of the shadows, illuminating the chaotic scrawl of images and words. I took a deep breath, calming my racing heart. Images swirled around me, forming new scenes, and in one corner I noticed a new drawing, a crude but recognizable doll. "That's it," I said, pointlessly trying to reach toward the dull pencil outline.
The doll! Clara, don't lose focus, the creature squeaked, pushed closer by a rising tension in the air. I closed my eyes, trying to will the picture to grow clearer, forcing myself to remember what the woman had said. Follow her story, I repeated to myself, directing my thoughts toward the doll. It flickered a moment before revealing another sketch, my sister kneeling beside the same doll, only now it looked different, darker. It seemed to be reaching out to her. That's when I felt it, a cold hand gripping my wrist. I opened my eyes wide, gasping. Shadows flared back up, and a creature, long and serpentine, began to emerge from the darkness, its eyes glowing with malice. I tried to pull free, but the grip tightened. Follow her, the tiny creature cried, panic lacing its voice. You must finish the story before it's too late. In an instant, I felt the doll's energy surge through me as it glimmered on the page. I was suddenly pulled into another scene, the shadows swirling around me, warping my surroundings. The figure of my sister remained distant, lost but still present. I focused on her. Then everything shifted again, and I found myself standing in her room, only it felt wrong.
The air was thick, and the light was dimmed, but there it was, the doll, sitting innocently on her bed, its button eyes glimmering in the fading light. I took a cautious step forward. It felt like a lifetime since I last saw it. I reached out, but an alarm bell rang in my mind. Something stirred behind it. Clara! The voice pulled me back. The creature darted around, the panic clear in its high-pitched whine. You have to move! It's coming! Just as I turned, I caught a glimpse of movement, something shifting in the shadows, separating from the dark itself. My breath stopped as I saw it. No longer just a silhouette, but a figure clearly formed, a menacing presence that glared at me. Clara, it hissed, the voice echoing with familiarity. You shouldn't have come. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. I understood now. I had to act swiftly, or everything I loved would be lost. And from somewhere deep within me, a fierce determination rose. With newfound resolve, I reached out for the doll, praying it would be the key to saving my sister. Get away from her! I screamed, wanting to shatter the suffocating darkness surrounding me. There was a moment of silence, a fragile gap between fear and desperation, and then the air crackled with intensity. The doll, now gripped tightly in my palm, pulsed with a warmth that rushed through my fingers, that surrounded me like a shield. It felt like a tether, drawing strength from me as much as I sought it from the doll. I dared a glance back at the figure looming in the shadows. Its face twisted in a contorted expression, a mix of rage and confusion that made my stomach churn. You're not supposed to be here! It roared, and every syllable dripped with venom. The shadows thickened around it, swirling as if to protect their master. With each step I took forward, the doll's warmth started to spread through me, igniting my nerve. I'm here for my sister! Let her go! I shouted, voice rising as I planted my feet firmly against the oppressive darkness. It was like standing against a storm, yet I felt the unfamiliar yet reassuring weight of resolve begin to ground me. The figure recoiled, blustering as the shadows flickered for the slightest moment, revealing glimpses of my sister in the depths behind it. She was trapped in the darkness, her eyes wide and filled with uncertainty. But then, amidst that terror, she caught my gaze and held it with a flicker of recognition. Clara! She called, a glimmer of hope surfacing in her tone. It broke through the haze of fear. Focusing on the doll, I felt an invisible thread tugging between us, a lifeline forged in that moment of conviction. I won't let it take you, I promise. The whispers crescendoed, almost drowned out by the sound of my own heart pounding. Foolish girl! The figure shrieked, its voice a high-pitched screech. You don't understand the power you meddle with!
With that, it lunged toward me, Shadow's claws extended, clawing for my heart. Drawing on the energy from the doll, I lifted my arm, defying the envelopment of darkness. I understand enough. To my surprise, I could feel the light within me flicker to life, merging with the doll's energy as if we became one. Brightness expanded beyond the room, illuminating the shadows and pushing back the malevolence that clawed at us. The figure recoiled under the onslaught. No, it screamed, fists raised, but the power surged, washing over it like a tide. I could see my sister, achingly close, her features becoming clearer, the shadows around her wavering as the light enveloped everything. In a final act of bravery, I plunged the doll forward. This ends now! The glow exploded outward, surging toward the figure, wrapping it in an embrace of light. Clara, the spell! My sister called, voice filled with urgency. It needs to be broken! In a rush, thoughts raced through my mind, and as the light fiercely clashed against the darkness, I called the words I felt rippling through me. You cannot have what is not yours. We choose love over fear. I break this spell.
With that proclamation, the light intensified, blinding my senses momentarily, and when it faded, I found myself standing in an empty room. The doll lay on the floor, its sinister smile now a featureless expression, as if the final thread holding the darkness had been severed. "Clara!" My sister's voice echoed nearby. I spun, finding her sitting on the ground, dazed but alive. Relief flooded me as I rushed to her side, enveloping her in my arms. As we held on to each other, the weight of fear slowly dissipated, leaving shaky breathlessness in its wake. "What just happened?" she murmured, pulling back to examine my face. I think we broke its hold. I don't know how, but it's gone." But as the words left my mouth, a creeping doubt nestled itself in my chest. Was it really over? I could still feel the remnants of the darkness lurking just beneath the surface, a whisper of uncertainty still echoing around us. My sister shook her head, disoriented. "I should have never kept that doll. It was always watching, always waiting for something. I just thought it was part of my childhood." "Maybe it still is," I replied softly, glancing back at the doll, now static and eerily lifeless on the floor. But beneath the lifeless facade, something twisted in my gut, a question clinging to me like the last rays of sunlight before dusk. Was it truly vanquished, or just waiting for another time, another opportunity? The room shifted, the atmosphere settling, but I couldn't shake the feeling the darkness had merely gone into hiding, biding its time. We stood together, fleeting relief mingling with an unsettling silence, and as we backed away from the doll, leaving it behind, I couldn't help but wonder if we had unwittingly become a part of its story, destined to confront shadows again.
I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I still think about that apartment and the promises that lurked within its walls. But mostly, I try not to dwell on it, and I pray the darkness remains where I left it, just a whisper behind a shut door.